My mother-in-law, 48, has always been very open about sex. When I first met my husband, 30, she managed a sex toy store. About a year ago, she started working towards a degree in sexual health and wellness, nude models for a local artist. And around a month ago, she started an OnlyFans account. Sex and openness about it have always been extraordinarily normal for her. I have absolutely nothing against her working in the sex industry. That's her forte, and I'm happy that she's doing well and enjoying what she does. However, I've had some slight concerns about it before, not specifically her working in the sex industry or her openness in general, more so how open she is, especially with her own kids. For example, when my husband and I started dating in high school, when she was managing the sex store, she would come home from work, stop into my husband's boyfriend at the time room, and hand us sample sizes of different lubes and sensation cream, saying, "I thought you guys might want to try some of these." It always made us both pretty uncomfortable, and it was extremely awkward to have my boyfriend's mom hand me things to try sexually with her son, but nonetheless the most conversation that my husband and I ever had about it back then was about how awkward it was. Awkward and uncomfortable enough that we never actually used these things. They just piled up on a shelf by his bed. Another time, while we were dating, fresh out of high school, we were hanging out with his sisters. His mom was still working at the sex toy shop. Once in a while she would come home with silly toys, and on this night she walked in with a one fat, long, glittery dildo. She playfully whipped it around towards us like a sword. His sisters screamed and ran from her, and for a while we all laughed and had fun about it, snatching it from one another and chasing each other around with the glitter schlong. Eventually my husband's sister, 17 at the time, said something like, "Mom, you better not have brought that home to use. That's crazy." My husband chimed off an ew, saying he didn't need to think about that, and his mom laughed and replied, "Oh, no, that's silicone. You know the toys I use are glass." Again, my husband made a weird face but didn't say anything. When we got to his room, I said that it was weird that his mom talked to her children about what she uses to get her rocks off, and he told me that she's always been way too open about things that none of them wanted to know, but that she's always been this way, so he's just gotten used to tuning it out. As time went on, I got used to the openness, and it was just that, being too open about personal stuff within conversation. However, yesterday, the openness went too far. My husband and I were sitting in our living room watching TV. My husband got a text from his mom and opened it and had a visceral reaction. He tossed his phone down, stood up, walked away from it with his hands over his face, while saying things like, "Oh my God," and "Holy shit," under his breath. Naturally, I thought that someone had died, so I started frantically asking what was wrong. All he said was that he didn't even want to open his phone again. I asked again what was wrong, and he told me that his mom just sent him pictures. I was confused, but my concerns started to grow. I asked what he meant by pictures, and he hesitated before saying, "I don't want to ask you to look, but I can't open it back to delete it myself, so I need you to." My stomach dropped. I opened his phone to see what was there, and I immediately felt nauseous. There was a text that read, "Hey, I know you've always supported me, and I wanted to see if you'd be willing to subscribe to my OV so that I can get my numbers up while I'm still getting started. Of course, I don't expect or want you looking through it, but the more subscriber numbers I have, the more engagement I can get. I was also wondering if you'd be willing to share my link to some of your friends at work. Husband is in a male-dominated blue-collar job." The pics I included are to send to them with a link, but don't tell them I'm your mom, and under it was the pictures. There were 3 nude photos of his mother, and not just naked in a mirror or pics of the boobs kind of photos. They were full-on pornographic photos. One of her tied up in BDSM gear, one of her face down, ass up on her bed, and one of her with legs spread and a dildo halfway in her mouth. My blood was boiling. I deleted what she'd sent, and my husband and I were both silent for a moment. I didn't know what else to say or do, so I broke the silence by asking, "What now?" My husband told me to block his mom on his phone, so I did. I asked if this was something his mom has done before, and he said no. He told me that in the past she's asked if he wanted to see pictures of the drawing she posed for. He always felt a bit guilty saying no, so he simply didn't respond when she asked, and she never sent it. Then my husband went pale and started walking to the bathroom, saying he felt sick. While he was in the bathroom, I blocked his mom on my phone as well, including her social medias. When my husband came back out of the bathroom, he called his sister. He asked her if she was with their mom, and when she said no, he explained to her what all had just gone down. His sister was also speechless. Then he asked her not to say anything to other family members right now, and explained that neither him nor I would be in contact with their mom for a while. He also told her that any time we were home for a visit, he would let his sisters know so that we could plan to see them, but that his mom would not be included in those plans from here on out. My Mill quickly realized that she was blocked on everything by the both of us, and by that night, she had the whole family blowing up our phones, asking why. The constant messages haven't stopped, and so far we've just muted our phones as we don't even know what to say. How do you explain that your mother sent you her homemade porn? Update 1. Many asked for an update, so here's a small one for now. When my husband got home from work today, he did have me recover the messages for evidence, should it be needed. I screenshotted the message with timestamps in each of the photos. In the photos I scribbled over her not-so-private areas as well. After that, I sent the images to my phone and once again deleted the messages from his phone, both in his mother's texts and mine, per husband's request. This was something that several people suggested in the comments of my previous post, and believe me, we were on the same page before I even read them. Hell. My husband and I are also regulars in therapy, both individual and couples counseling. When we got married, we agreed that doing counseling from the get-go was a good idea, not because we have problems in our marriage, but it gives us the tools to confront issues in the future, and keeps us on the same page 100% of the time. That being said, I asked my husband if he'd ever mentioned his mother's sexualness in his own therapy, and he said no, since it is how she's always been raised, he saw it as mostly normal. I suggested that this should most definitely be brought up at his next session, and he agreed. I also asked if there was anything that has happened that was a bit overboard in the past, outside of conversation. He said that his mother would often come home from work with new lingerie, and she would put it on and wear it around the house for the rest of the night as if they were regular clothes. When she would do this, he would either stay in his room or go to a friend's house because it made him uncomfortable. Several people asked why there hasn't been a conversation about her talking about uncomfortable topics. There has been. When my husband and I were dating, both of us minors, she would talk to my husband about our sex life explicitly. Some of the questions she's asked him are, if he likes girls who are clean-shaven, if him and I were using lube, if I preferred ribbed condoms, if we had tried certain positions, even if I preferred stimulation via clitoris or G-spot. When she would ask these things, my husband simply wouldn't answer with more than I don't know, but eventually he did tell her to stop. He told her that he didn't want to talk about these things with her, that he knew I wouldn't want her talking about those things with her, and that her asking this stuff made him extremely uncomfortable. Her response was to get defensive and act as if she'd been disrespected. She would say that sex was normal, that she should be able to have these conversations with her son. She even accused him of shaming her sexuality, so he went back to ignoring the questions altogether. Some suggested that we have an in-person conversation with her about this happening. Not only do we live far away, but we aren't ready for a conversation about it, and we especially aren't ready to discuss it in person. This happened yesterday afternoon, and it will honestly be a very long time before any sort of communication happens with her at all. I did find out what she'd been telling family. She's telling them that she asked if her son supported her, not if he would subscribe and share her content. That is why family has been reaching out and asking why we've blocked her for asking that. We will be telling family exactly what happened, but we aren't quite ready to do so yet, and that will come within the next few days. We're still processing all of what's going on. My husband has a therapy session tomorrow, and we have one together the next day. We will likely wait to talk about this with family until after our sessions. That way we can get our ducks in a row a bit more, and we are even considering legal action. Again, that is something we will bring up with our therapists before continuing. That is the main reason we took screenshot evidence. For those curious, yes, Mill is young. She had my husband at 16 to 17, and we got married young as well, very common among my family and in the field of work he is in. And that field of work is the military, so him sharing his mother's content would heavily affect him. Not just a firing, that would give him a sharp sexual harassment assault response, and prevention case and a possible dishonorable discharge, which would make it extremely difficult to go. That's all I have for an update right now, but trust that there will be another. Thanks so much for all of the advice and support I received on my last post. I seriously gained such good info from the comments, and it's been really helpful. Update 2. May 1st, 2025. My husband and I have spoken with therapists about the entire situation, and we've drawn a conclusion to how we will handle things, as advised by our therapist, and based on what we've planned ourselves. My Mill will be cut off until she does the self-work and is no longer overly sexual towards family. That being said, my husband and I are prepared for her to be cut off permanently. She will likely not attend therapy herself as she sees it as unimportant. I'm not sure if her opinion comes from her visiting a therapist previously, but she does believe that therapists just tell you everything wrong with yourself and why you need to change. They don't actually try to help your mental health, just make it worse. I'm sure everyone can imagine what has caused her to draw those conclusions. As of now, husband and I will not be pushing legal action. We've decided that for us, at this time, we would prefer to lay down the law and what we feel comfortable with. If that is respected, that is great, and nothing more will come of it on our end. If that isn't respected, and there are more attempts to reach us, such as creating accounts, etc., we will most likely seek out a restraining order. As I mentioned in a previous update, I have saved the screenshots from the original issue, so we will have that to present if needed. On to family. As a reminder, husband's side of the family was blowing up our phones, asking why we would block Mill. What Mill told them was that we blocked her after she simply asked for our support in the things she's doing. What they didn't know was that she sent photos of herself. We told them, didn't send the photos of course, but did describe them. Things were understood quickly and nothing more was said. I don't know if family has taken it upon themselves to confront Mill about this. If they have, great, she needs it. If they haven't, oh well. Now, from my own perspective, I was raised in a family where everything was very taboo. Sex, sexuality, our bodies, even our periods were difficult to talk about. So much so that when my mom found out I had a crush on a boy when I was 13, I cried and profusely apologized because I thought I would be in a lot of trouble. Asking questions wasn't okay either, so when I did have questions, I couldn't simply ask. For example, I overheard my mom say the word porn and didn't know what it meant. When I asked my parents what the word porn was, I got sent to my room, so at 7 years old, I grabbed the family tablet and Googled porn, saw a bunch of naked people, got scared. Put the iPad back in the living room. When my parents checked the search history that night, I was screamed at, and not allowed to touch electronics for the rest of the year. With all of that in mind, a sex-positive family was so incredibly foreign to me. The idea of being able to go to your mom, ask about sex or your body, and have a conversation instead of getting in trouble was completely new. When my husband and I were dating, I never knew that his mom was going too far. I thought that this simply was sex positivity. Of course, I had intuition that things went too far at times, like when I questioned the toy conversation, but when the response to my questions was, "She's just really open," I chalked it up to that and didn't really question it anymore. To answer some common questions, my mill is not this open when it comes to my sills. I always assumed it was because they were younger. But the pictures being sent to only my husband really hammer the nail into the covert incest coffin. Come to find out, Mill also isn't quite as open with sills. She is open about her own doings, but doesn't meddle in their own like she did my husband. I mentioned before that she would question my husband on our sex life when we were dating. Another phone call with my middle sill revealed that she's absolutely never done that to the girls. In fact, there have been times where she's overheard my sill saying something about their boyfriends, and she would say, "Eek, lower your voice, I don't want to know," whereas she would straight up ask my husband about sex. Another common question was, "Where's Phil?" He's never been in the picture. My husband's dad left when Mill was pregnant with her youngest daughter. Mill also doesn't have a father herself because he left when she was a baby, and there aren't a lot of men in the family. 2 distant uncles and a few cousins, but as far as close family, my husband was the only male growing up, and yes, some people got it right. My husband looks exactly like his bio dad. Same build, same hair typically like his bio dad, same bone, same hair type and color, same nose structure, same eye shape, even a very similar birth. That fact makes this even more gross altogether. And finally, no, we don't have children. However, I have always had concerns about leaving children alone with her because of the openness. I will know when my future children are ready to know about certain topics. Those conversations will come from my husband and I and only us. I've always been concerned that Mill would discard our opinions on that and give our future children the birds and bees talk whenever she felt like. Unless she can fix whatever is wrong in her brain, she will not ever be alone with our kids and possibly even know them. But overall, this is my final in the whole situation. So if any other questions arise, ask away, and I would be happy to answer. Thank you so much to everyone for all of the advice. I didn't even know the term covert incest before posting, and I'm grateful that I do now. It's given my husband and I something to do a little research about, and it's changed our perspective on the past quite a bit. My husband will be taking all of this into therapy more than just his last sessions, and at my next personal session I will likely bring it up too. It's also a topic that will be discussed at counseling together, more than just yesterday's session as well. Again, thank you, everyone. Additional info. OP clarifies details on how the situation can get her husband in trouble with his workplace, military. OP again, I'm not in the military, my husband is. I never said that he would get in trouble because his mom did this, something you claimed in a previous comment. I said that had he shared those things with his coworkers, he could have gotten in trouble. You also mentioned how he couldn't get in trouble because he didn't share them. Once again, I think you misunderstood. His mother asked him to share them with his coworkers. She is aware that doing so could get him in trouble, so I was referring to the fact that she was actively asking him to do something that risks him getting in trouble. As far as sharp cases go, yes, him sharing those images with coworkers could get him a sharp case. From my own experiences around our area, I've known of people who were dishonorably discharged because of sharp cases. Again, I'm not in the military, and what I know about sharp cases is they're very serious, and others have been discharged because of it. Eta, you can believe it's karma farming if you'd like, but like I said in my original post, this is a throwaway account. Wouldn't make much sense to karma farm that's going to be deleted, or at the very least, permanently inactive. I'm not sure if you're simply skimming through the things I'm saying and not actually reading them, but please read this carefully. I am not claiming that he can get in trouble for receiving these photos from his mother. I never claimed that. What I mentioned was that he could have gotten into trouble if he then forwarded those images to his coworkers. He didn't do that, so he won't get into trouble. His mother asked him to forward those images to his coworkers, and his mother is aware that doing that could get him in trouble. Therefore, his mother is asking him to do something that could get him into trouble. Update 3, May 9th, 2025. Hello again, everyone. A little over a week ago, I thought I had logged out of this account for good. I posted about my husband's mother asking him to subscribe to her OnlyFans and sending him explicit images of herself, along with the updates to those things, and unfortunately, many people in the last update comments were correct. That was not the last of her, but at the very least, I thought our peace would have lasted a little bit longer than it did. My mill had left us alone, and when we did let family know what had happened, they fully backed us in our decision to cut her out. In some reach of desperation, Mill created another Instagram account because my husband blocked her. She went to his account. It isn't private, and went through his following list. Then she messaged a bunch of my husband's friends. The message read, "Maybe you've heard of me," and had a link to her OnlyFans. Since several of our friends got the same message and many of them spend 24/7 together, both at work and living in barracks together, they put together that they all got the same message from the same person. Obviously, they thought it was funny. A middle-aged woman was sending her OnlyFans link to a bunch of army grunts. While my husband was at work, someone brought it up and asked who else got the OnlyFans DM. A majority of my husband's friends replied that they got it, but my husband was confused and asked what they were talking about. So one of them explained that some older woman sent them all this message, and then he turned his phone to show my husband the link. My husband said he held it together the best he could, and just said that it was weird and tried to laugh it off. He called me on his way home to tell me everything, and I could hear the rage in his voice. When he got home, he called his sister to ask her to get info from his mom. He told her to ask how she found all of his friends on Instagram. She finally admitted to looking at my husband's followers from the account she messaged his friends on. My husband texted his friends to block the Instagram account. I'm sure that they've questioned why, but I don't know if he said anything or given reason because I know he doesn't want them knowing that he has any connection to this woman, let alone that she is his mom. We heard from my husband's other sister that sister, the one my husband called, finally blew up at their mom and outright told her that she would never hear from her son again because of this. So Mill got on that fake Instagram account and started trying to call my husband. My husband answered one of the calls because he wanted to give her a piece of his mind as well. Mill was already crying, trying to explain that she was just trying to expand her business so that she could support their family. My husband told her to go back to her real job, that she was a desperate bag, and that she would be out of both of our lives for good. He hung up and blocked the account, so she started trying to reach me on the fake account. I blocked her as well. This all happened around 5:00 p.m. today, and since then we've been contacted by her through text and call on other fake Instagram accounts, text now numbers. We've had about 4 different Snapchat account requests to add us, Facebook friend requests from new accounts as well. We will not be responding to any of these, but we are taking screenshots and documenting everything. It finally stopped when she tired herself out about 2 hours ago. We've changed all of our social medias to private. We've changed our profile settings to where messages and calls from accounts that aren't following us won't give us notifications, but will go to a message request folder. We want to build up as much evidence of her trying to reach us as we can. The same goes for our text messages. Any numbers not in our contacts will go to a request folder. However, we can't do anything about the phone calls as of right now, as we both receive calls from unknown numbers regarding work often enough. Luckily, we're able to tell which ones are mail and which ones are work because of the area code, so we know which calls not to answer. We will be going to speak to an attorney as soon as we can. My husband is trying to come up with a way to get screenshots from his friends without letting them know the situation, which unfortunately probably won't work out for at least some of them. I don't know exactly what we can do yet, but our plan is to push for a restraining order or some kind of no-contact order. We cannot do this young anymore. Again, thanks for all of the support received when I posted the original posts. We will be working out any way we can to make sure this behavior never reaches us ever again, and I'm sorry if this story seems choppy or strangely written. I'm truly exhausted and have been losing sleep, not only over this BS, but over some major stress going on in my own family on top. It is late. There is a lot on my mind. I'm angry, stressed, annoyed, and I can no longer handle this monster of a so-called mother being a part of that stress because of her desperation and downright sexually abusive behavior towards her son, from when he was a child to now.